Long after midnight, gleaming skyscrapers commanded the skyline in a city that thrived on spectacle. Brightly lit advertisements flickered and pulsed in colors unimaginable, vying for attention beneath the silver watch of the moon. On the 17th floor of one particularly grand building, Celestine Aurelius leaned over a balcony framed in gilded railings. She was an heiress. That much was clear from her impeccably tailored gown that flowed in shimmering folds like stardust. The city's hush was occasionally broken by a passing car horn or the hum of an elevated train, but in Celestine's mind there was only the rushing sound of the cosmos, an echo of her gifts. She closed her eyes, breathing in the night's energy. Immediately, a soothing sense of cosmic power coursed beneath her skin, forming invisible pathways that pulsed in tandem with her heart. She had long since grown attuned to the subtle thrumming inside her, a presence that had first awakened on her 14th birthday. That day, she had wandered out to the orchard on her family's sprawling estate and gazed at the stars, each one twinkling like a miniature beacon. Her father, who possessed an uncanny knowledge for everything celestial, had told her that her birth aligned with a moment when certain constellations intersected. The alignment lent her small but potent abilities, passing cosmic energies from distant suns into her very marrow. Only later, as Celestine's powers grew each year, did the family realize the girl had been singled out by the heavens for something more profound. Her father, Julius Aurelius, passed away before he could fully instruct her on the magnitude of her gifts, but he left behind a chest of star maps. These ancient charts were scrawled with cryptic notes about celestial phenomena and the family's hidden legacy. Studying them became Celestine's solace in the lonely corridors of her mansion. She spent hours each night under the library's skylight, enveloped in the faint glow of a single lamp, tracing her fingertips over swirling galaxies on delicate parchment. Each constellation seemed to whisper secrets of a greater cosmic tapestry. Sometimes, the lamp flickered in unison with her surging power, as though her emotions rippled across the physical world. The moment she realized she could harness starlight like a painter uses a brush, conjuring brilliant illusions of cosmic fireworks, she knew her life had changed course. Forever now. Years later, Celestine's nights were a flurry of invitations to gala after gala, her presence requested at exclusive gatherings where the city's elite rubbed shoulders in mirrored halls and crystal-festooned ballrooms. She was the charitable darling, the glamorous heiress, philanthropic and charming, with an aura that drew admirers like moths to a flame. At every event, she lit up the night, sometimes literally, by commanding illusions of dancing constellations overhead, tiny stars swirling in mesmerizing patterns, or ephemeral nebula clouds shimmering around the grand ceiling lights. These became her signature flourish. People swooned and applauded, never suspecting the illusions might be anything more than a clever display of technology. Of course, rumors circulated. Some whispered that expensive holograms were behind her dazzle. Others claimed exotic tech from her father's estate. None suspected the illusions were woven by real magic. One evening, she found herself on the rooftop terrace of the famed Galaxy Hall, a statement in slate-grey stone and shimmering skylights. The gala was a celebration of new city developments, a perfect opportunity to display the architectural wonders about to spring up in the boiling cauldron of creative commerce. The dress code was strictly black and silver. Celestine wore a gown woven with silver threads, accenting the natural glow of her star-kissed skin. Her hair, a bold shade of midnight blue, cascaded down her back in waves, pinned with glittering star clips. As the elegant throngs mingled and sipped cocktails, Celestine circulated with careful poise. She smiled, offered brief pleasantries, and laughed at polite jokes. All the while, her cosmic power hummed with a sub-threshold excitement. In the city's luminous bustle, she found it harder and harder to keep her abilities contained. When midnight struck, Celestine allowed herself one indulgence. With a subtle flick of her wrist, hidden behind a flourish of her gown, she released tendrils of starlight. They spiraled overhead, weaving between the steel beams of the open terrace. At first, the illusions shimmered faintly, like a reflection in a distant mirror, but soon they grew radiant, forming glimmers of swirling galaxies. The guests gasped, setting down their drinks and pressing close, enthralled by the starry spectacle. Applause and exclamations rang out, echoing off the city's glass towers. This was more than just a pretty display. Celestine's illusions danced in patterns that resonated with the stars above, forging a temporary bridge between her and the distant heavens. In her mind, she felt the presence of faraway points of light, an intimate union with endless cosmic possibilities. Her heart throbbed with both exhilaration and caution. While the illusions never failed to dazzle, each new demonstration threatened to draw attention from prying eyes, those who might sense the authenticity rather than mistake it for theatrics. That night, among the throngs of mystified onlookers, one pair of eyes did not look impressed or merely curious. Instead, they watched with a calculated gleam, evaluating and appraising. Wrapped in a dark cloak, a figure lingered by the terrace bar. He appeared to be just another guest, facial features partly obscured behind tinted glasses. Celestine felt the prick of silent scrutiny, even if she tried to dismiss it as a byproduct of her performance's grandeur. When the illusions fragmented into a fleeting shower of meteor lights and fizzled out, the figure disappeared from her sight. Yet somehow Celestine sensed his presence lingering, like a faint aftertaste on the air. Soon after, she was ushered by society darlings into a velvet-curtained lounge, where sharp whispers about her brilliance circulated in appreciative currents. She received a swirl of compliments, each praising her for her philanthropic edge. She had promised a hefty donation to a children's hospital. Over the rim of her champagne flute, she tried to steady herself, to remain composed amid the swirl of extravagance. Yet in her mind she recalled the look from that dark-cloaked stranger. All the symmetrical beauty and congratulatory flattery of the lounge felt oddly hollow by comparison. In the days that followed, Celestine confined herself to her estate's private tower, the place where she felt safest. Through wide windows she watched the city below morph through the hazy humidity of midday and the flickering neon brilliance of nighttime. Her gaze drifted outward, to places where the skyline met the star-ridden darkness. She consulted her father's star maps, reading over passages she had nearly memorized about the celestial convergence and cosmic. Some lines hinted at guardianship bestowed upon certain individuals, as if those attuned to the heavens had a special duty to safeguard cosmic secrets. But there were also dire warnings of watchers and hunters, those who hounded cosmic vessels for their power, to twist or exploit it for worldly ambition. The recollection made her uneasy. On the day of her next grand event, a glitzy fundraiser for renewable energy initiatives at the Meridian Crown Ballroom, she found herself anxious beyond reason. She was set to arrive fashionably late, but her heart pounded like war drums the entire limousine ride over. Normally, she found these gatherings an opportunity to do urgent philanthropic work while weaving a bit of awe among her peers, ensuring they stayed engaged and willing to open their checkbooks. Tonight, though, her senses remained on high alert, scanning every shadow. She slid her gaze along the lines of black SUVs parked outside the venue, up the swirl of security lights. Everyone else seemed oblivious to her unease. The Meridian Crown Ballroom itself stood resplendent, a swirling interior of glass chandeliers shaped like swirling nebulae. The event's organizers had outdone themselves, projecting illusions of lunar landscapes across the walls. Celestine stepped out of her limousine, wearing a smooth midnight black gown that contrasted sharply with her vivid silver jewelry. Reporters swarmed, and she gave the mandatory polite smile as cameras flashed, illuminating the night with bursts of white. Inside, the scent of floral arrangements and expensive perfume intermingled under the hush of piano music. Dignitaries, ambassadors, CEOs, and socialites whispered stories of finance and gossip, while philanthropic announcements rolled out on stage. Celestine nodded to acquaintances, though her eyes kept darting around. She was halfway through a conversation with an oil magnate's wife when she spotted a slight figure in the crowd, the same tinted glasses, the same dark cloak, drifting incongruously amid a sea of black tuxedos and sequined gowns. A chill rippled through her, and she excused herself politely, weaving past tables until she could keep him in her line of sight. Her cosmic energy stirred, pulsing with a strange mixture of anticipation and alarm. He shifted, cushioning behind a large champagne fountain. She forced her way through chatting guests, ignoring their friendly calls. She found him near a side exit, leaning in the shadows. As she approached, heart pounding, he turned, removing the tinted glasses to reveal light grey eyes set in a sharply angled face. He wore the kind of smirk that suggested neither hostility nor friendliness, more a test of her own reaction. "You certainly know how to put on a show," he said quietly, stepping closer. His voice was smooth but threaded with tension, "though you use your gifts quite openly." Celestine forced calm. "I don't know what you mean," she answered. Her voice was firm, but her mind reeled with alarm. This was no random stranger. The intensity of his gaze set her nerves on edge. "My name is Darius," he introduced, ignoring her feigned ignorance. "I've been watching you for a while, Miss Aurelius. Your illusions, your firework displays, they're breathtaking. But you should understand that some of us can sense authenticity. Real cosmic power has a resonance. It's unwise to flaunt it in front of those who might misuse it." "Are you threatening me?" she asked. Immediately her cosmic sense flared. She felt a gravitational push from him, though whether it was magical or a trick of her unsettled mind, she couldn't say. Darius shook his head. "I come with a warning. There's a group in this city, a covert circle that collects unique abilities. Their interest is purely mercenary, if you understand me. They harness powers, barter them, exploit them for unsavory agendas. If you continue to stir attention with your starlight, you'll soon end up on their radar." A volley of laughter from the ballroom rose behind them as well-dressed guests drifted from the main area, oblivious to the tension crackling between the cloaked man and the heiress. Celestine felt a trickle of dread. It was one thing to suspect that her illusions might spark curiosity. It was another to learn of a group who actively sought to trap cosmic abilities. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, her voice tight. "Because I've seen them hunt people like us before." He slipped something small and metallic into her hand, a ring etched with an unfamiliar symbol. "This will help you track me if you need assistance." Then he turned and melted back into the crowd. Celestine glanced down at the ring, the symbol of a crescent moon and star, moderately worn, as if by centuries of use. Though she finished out the evening with a carefully composed smile, her heart remained unsettled. She politely indulged requests for a small demonstration, conjuring modest starlit swirls that left the audience applauding. But she kept her illusions restrained, tightly controlled, mindful of eyes that might observe too closely. That night, she took a restless trip home in her limousine, the city lights sliding past her window like shards of neon glass. She felt trapped between her sense of duty to uphold her father's philanthropic ideals and the new settling knowledge that her cosmic talents could bring trouble. In her gilded suite, she examined the ring under dim lamplight. The symbol gleamed in polished relief. An attempt to read the ring's energy revealed a faint tug, as though it were connected to some distant lodestar. She slipped it onto her thumb and resolved to keep her illusions discreet in the coming weeks. But old habits were hard to break. Her star magic was the one thing that truly made her feel connected to the universe. The next day, the city's philanthropic circuit demanded her presence at a museum benefit, and she found herself compelled to offer at least a hint of her unique style. Tiptoeing along the museum's marble floors, she drifted through exhibits of ancient cosmic artifacts, meteorite shards in glass cases, astronomical charts from extinct civilizations. The exhibit's curator, enthralled by her father's star maps, asked if she could provide a small demonstration for the evening's highlight. Reluctantly, she agreed, hoping to keep it subtle. Subtlety, however, seldom went hand in hand with her illusions. Before she knew it, she'd conjured a swirling vortex of ethereal lights that expanded across the museum's vaulted ceiling, transforming it into a cosmic panorama. Gasps and enthusiastic applause filled the event space. Pride and caution warred in her heart. She reined the display in, letting it fade with graceful finality long before it reached its crescendo. Even so, out of the corner of her eye, she thought she saw the glimmer of tinted glasses again. Goosebumps prickled her arms, and she hurriedly excused herself from delighted patrons. The following evening, Celestine found an envelope slid under the door of her estate. No return address, only her name scrawled in a clear looping script. Inside was a single note. "You do not know your true potential. But we do. Meet us under the old observatory tonight." Fear coiled in her gut. Part of her wanted to burn the note and ignore it, but the words seemed to thrash inside her mind, taunting her. She recalled Darius's warning. Maybe these were the individuals who hunted cosmic powers. Regardless, she told herself, knowledge might be her best defense. The old observatory stood perched on a rocky outcrop at the edge of the city, a relic of a bygone era of stargazing. Its dome had lost its lust and the building sagged in disrepair. She arrived by taxi, wearing a practical outfit, slime-black pants, a dark jacket, her hair pinned up. The night sky hung overhead like a velvet tapestry. A single security light flickered by the observatory's entrance, revealing a cracked wooden door. She crossed the threshold, heart hammering. Shadows gathered inside the circular chamber. Broken telescopes and dusty equipment crowded the corners, strewn about like bones. Suddenly, a hollow voice echoed around the dome. "We've been watching you, Celestian Aurelius. Child of cosmic inheritance." 4 figures stepped into the hazy light. Each wore a dark hooded robe, embroidered with arcane symbols. "We want what's inside you," one hissed, his voice dripping with hunger. "Together we can harness it." Another, presumably the group's leader, took a step closer. "Think of all that cosmic energy, channeled efficiently, shared, not hoarded by a single star-kissed soul. True wonders could be accomplished." Celestine shivered, bracing herself. She sensed the swirling energies in her blood. "That's not what your note implied. You lured me here under false pretenses." "There's no falsehood in the potential you hold," said the leader. "We're prepared to offer you a place among us, or we can take your power by force." She stood straighter. In that instant, her fear transmuted into a hot thread of defiance. "You misunderstand. This power isn't a commodity to be bartered or stolen. It's woven into my being." She raised her hands, letting cosmic currents flow from her palms. A faint glow shrouded her fingertips. The robed figures glanced at each other, stances shifting into aggression. She felt a swirl of force snap around her ankles, dark strands of magic weaving across the floor, forming a binding circle. She tried to yank free, but it was as if invisible chains gripped her with relentless pressure. Pulse pounding, she closed her eyes, reaching for a deeper resonance. She imagined the star-filled sky overhead, an infinite tapestry that had cradled and protected her since birth. The cosmic Hume roared to life, singing in her veins like a meteor storm. Suddenly, brilliant arcs of starlight shot from her wrists, severing the dark bonds at her feet. She staggered free. Shrieks of indignation echoed around the dome. 2 of the robed figures hurled orbs of coruscating energy toward her, swirling black and purple, crackling with malignant force. Instinctively, Celestine formed a shimmering barrier of starlight. The dark projectiles erupted against her shield in sparks. She pressed her advantage, conjuring swirling illusions of cosmic fireworks that erupted around the cultists, disorienting them. Half the illusions were real enough to burn or blind, drawing on the same phenomenon that produced meteor flashes across the night sky. One figure lunged with a dagger, but Celestine spun, letting her cosmic aura flare in a burst of silver-white brilliance. The air itself seemed to vibrate as starlight soared into the dome, ricocheting off the dusty ceiling. She braced for a second wave, but a new presence entered the fray. Darius burst through the doorway, cloak flying behind him. He hurled a slender blade charged with a faint aura of moonlight that deflected another incoming orb. The robed attackers recoiled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected ally. "You shouldn't have come alone," he said to Celestine, voice tense but layered with concern. "Seemed like I had little choice," she panted, pivoting as the cultists regrouped. 4 pairs of eyes glowed with malevolent intent. A swirl of conjured darkness built in their hands, ready to unleash. Darius nodded at Celestine. Acting in tandem, they each raised an arm. Celestine conjured a cosmic vortex overhead, a swirl of dazzling starlight, strong enough to distort the shadows. Darius manipulated a silvered wave from his blade, merging with Celestine's illusions. Together they shaped a barrier that plowed into the robed figures, scattering them in a swirl of moaning wind. The darkness they had been gathering fractured and dissipated, reduced to wispy remnants. Seeing their advantage slip, the 4 quickly retreated. They fled deeper into the observatory, then seemingly vanished, as if stepping through an invisible portal. The battered equipment and swirling dust were the only traces left of the confrontation. When the last echo of conflict faded, a half-collapsed telescope settled with a clang. Celestine and Darius stood panting beneath the cracked dome. The stars above pierced through holes in the roof, glinting like ancient watches. "You saved me," Celestine breathed, lowering her arms. The cosmic barrier dimmed around them, as star power retreating into her body. "I only gave you a momentary advantage," Darius said modestly, sliding his shimmering blade into a hidden scabbard. "You have more power than you realize. It's crucial you learn to channel it correctly." What were those people? A cult. They've got many names, but they're essentially a syndicate that hunts for magical gifts, particularly rare ones like yours. They'll strike again unless you learn to protect yourself. A wave of exhaustion seized her. Already her illusions left her half trembling with fatigue. "I can't just stop living my life," she said softly, swallowing a lump in her throat. "The philanthropic work, the appearances, I can't hide away." Darius gave her a grave nod. "You shouldn't have to. But from now on, you must be cautious. You'll need allies, myself included." His gaze flicked to the faint glow of the ring on her thumb. That ring connects you to a safe house of sorts, a place where folks with gifts gather and protect one another. She brushed strands of hair back from her sweat-dampened brow. "So there are more of us?" He let out a short laugh. "Oh, yes, you might be star-kissed, but you're not alone under that sky." The faint scuttling of wind through the broken dome reminded her how precarious that roof was, and how precarious her situation had become. She felt torn between relief and apprehension. Part of her worried that every gala, every new philanthropic event would be overshadowed by fear. Yet she could not imagine living any other way. Her illusions brought wonder and hope. They gave her a stage to champion causes that mattered, just as her father had taught her. She and Darius left the observatory, stepping out into the crisp night air. A few yards away, the city lights blinked in mesmerizing patterns. Cars sped along distant roads like glowing ants. For a moment, Celestine paused to tilt her head to the sky, letting the faint wash of starlight brush her cheek. She remembered being 14, standing in her family's orchard, feeling for the first time the universe answering her. That memory sparked a sense of determination she clung to now. "So what happens next?" she asked softly, her breath forming a ghostly cloud in the cold air. Darius turned to face her. "Now, you balance caution with bravery." Continue funding your charities, enchanting your galas, but remain vigilant. There are safe havens and protective wards we can put in place. You don't have to smother the starlight inside you. Just be mindful when you set it ablaze." She nodded, thoughtful. "My illusions. That's only the beginning, isn't it?" "It very well could be," he agreed. "Given the ancient knowledge in your father's maps, you might be able to tap even deeper cosmic power. But we'll face that step by step." They walked down the observatory's worn path to the curb, where a single taxi waited under flickering street lamps. Along the way, Celestine glanced at the ring on her thumb. She could almost feel others on the other side of its faint tug. Kindred spirits who had been similarly touched by powers beyond the mundane. Maybe she would seek them out. Maybe she would find her place in this hidden, magical undercurrent of the city. And in the meantime, the next gala was already scheduled for the following week, a star-studded fundraiser at the city's highest penthouse lounge. Nostalgia and fear mingled, but she decided that, with caution, she would still create her illusions. As she stepped into the waiting taxi, she pictured the city's elite enthralled by glowing nebulous swirls and celestial bursts overhead. She thought of the good those events could accomplish, the charitable causes that depended on her star-laden charisma. The taxi pulled away, the observatory receding into the distance. Darius had given her a small salute and disappeared into the shadows. Exhaustion weighed on her limbs, yet a quiet resolve filled her heart. The city's neon sprawl came into view, bathing everything in blues, pinks, and electric green. She pressed her fingertips against the glass window. Through the reflection, she saw her eyes shining with a flicker reminiscent of starlight. Though danger coiled in dark corners, she no longer felt like a naive performer. She was something else, a guardian of cosmic energies, inheritor of a legacy that spanned light years, a force that, if wielded correctly, could be a beacon of hope. She stayed awake for the whole ride, watching the lights pass. The city might search for ways to harness her abilities, but for now, she was prepared to meet its relentless pulse with her own. She was, after all, an heiress to the stars, and she would shine, no matter who watched from the shadows.